You feel fine walking in, but exhausted walking out. Why does talking to some people feel less like connection and more like an energy drain? This is the dark psychological paradox of emotional parasite dynamics, a deliberate pattern of emotional theft.
So, let's get right into it. In this explainer, we're going to break down what's called the parasite pattern. And we're not just going to identify it, we're going to dissect its mechanics so you can learn exactly how to stop this systematic theft of your emotional energy.
Here's our game plan. First, we'll tackle that unseen energy drain, recognizing the symptoms. Then, we'll actually put a name to this pattern. From there, we'll dig into how the draining really works, the psychology of both people in the dynamic, and, this is the most important part, we'll walk through the practical steps to reclaim your energy and become what I like to call emotionally sovereign.
All right, let's start with that feeling. You know the one. That deep exhaustion that just doesn't make any logical sense. We have to start with the symptom before we can get to the diagnosis.
I mean, really think about it for a second. An interaction that, on the surface, seems totally fine. A chat with a friend, a call with a family member, but it leaves you feeling just hollowed out, tired, maybe even a little confused. Let me tell you, this is not a random feeling. It's a very specific, very recognizable symptom of a much deeper dynamic at play.
So now, let's give this experience a proper name, because once you can define something, you can start to understand it. And that right there is the very first step toward getting control over it.
The official term is Emotional Parasite Dynamics, or EPD. Now, the key word here, the one I want you to focus on, is systematically. This isn't just an accident. It's not a one-off bad conversation. It is a consistent, one-sided pattern where your emotional resources, your empathy, your attention, your problem-solving brain power are being consumed by somebody else.
So where does this kind of behavior even come from? Well, it's often linked to individuals with narcissistic or borderline personality traits. And the real engine driving it all is a fundamental lack of internal emotional regulation. They literally can't soothe themselves, so they need an external source, the host, to stabilize their own ego. And this, of course, creates a deeply unequal dynamic where one person is just a constant provider and the other is a constant taker.
And one of the most common and, frankly, most effective ways they hook a host is by using what's called the tragic hero narrative. See, the emotional parasite builds this story around themselves of constant victimhood. They're always misunderstood, always dealing with some new crisis. This story isn't about finding solutions, not at all. It's about getting sympathy to make sure they have an uninterrupted supply of your energy and your attention.
Okay, now we're getting to the absolute core of it all, the actual mechanism of the drain. This isn't some vague, fuzzy feeling. It is a structured, three-stage process. This is exactly how the emotional theft gets done. The whole pattern breaks down into these three distinct stages. First, you have sourcing. That's where they find and hook a target. Then comes consumption, the active draining of your resources. And finally, there's isolation, which is what locks the host into this never-ending loop.
So it all kicks off with sourcing. Now, the parasite is really good at spotting people with one key trait: high empathy. They zero in on natural helpers, on problem solvers. And then they use these carefully placed distress cues, a sudden crisis, a constant complaint, a dramatic sigh, to get access to you. Your empathy fires up, and you feel this immediate pull to jump in and help.
And that help you're offering, it takes the form of something called emotional labor. This is the currency being stolen here. It's the very real, very tiring work you do when you're listening, validating their feelings, solving their problems, and basically regulating their emotions for them. Let's be clear, this isn't connection, it's unpaid, unreciprocated work. Which brings us right to stage 2, consumption. This is the main event. Here, the parasite relies on two main behaviors: chronic emotional dumping, which is just a relentless offloading of all their negativity onto you, and crisis manufacturing, the constant creation of brand new problems that you are now expected to solve. And this paints a perfect picture of what that looks like in the real world. You know, it's that friend who complains for an hour straight, but shoots down every single piece of advice you offer. It's the family member where the second one crisis gets resolved, a new one magically appears. They completely monopolize every conversation with their own drama, and this part is critical. When you need support, there's nothing, crickets. The energy only flows one way. Then we hit the final stage, isolation. And this is what makes the cycle so incredibly hard to break. After constantly giving and giving, the host is often just too exhausted to keep up with other friendships or get an outside opinion. This depletion actually makes them more dependent on the parasite, who cleverly gives them little breadcrumbs of validation, making the host feel needed. It's a really vicious feedback loop.
Okay, so we've covered the how. Now let's dig into the why. Why does this dynamic even form? Well, it takes two very specific corresponding sets of psychological traits for this pattern to really lock into place.
We're going to do a side-by-side comparison here. What is motivating the parasite, and what is the vulnerability in the host that lets this whole thing take root? Understanding this toxic interplay is absolutely key to taking it all apart. Now check this out. It's fascinating how perfectly these traits mirror each other. Over on the left, you've got the parasite's driver. They need external emotional regulation because they just can't self-soothe. And what meets that need? The host's vulnerability on the right, the empathy trap, where their own empathy basically forces them to fix any distress they see. The parasite wants low-effort narcissistic supply, and the host's sense of over-responsibility makes them the perfect provider. It all works because the host mistakenly believes their emotional labor is genuinely helping. It's a perfect toxic fit.
Okay, enough analysis. Now we move on to empowerment, because this is not a life sentence. There are real, practical strategies you can start using today to defend your energy and finally break this cycle.
The very first step is just awareness. And to get there, I want you to ask yourself a really simple but very powerful question. Think about a relationship that just leaves you feeling tired. Is it a 90-10 relationship? This is what we call the Reciprocity Audit.
Just look at this. Does this feel familiar at all? Are you the one who is consistently putting in 90% of the emotional labor, the support, the problem solving, while only getting maybe 10%, or, let's be honest, probably less in return? Sometimes just seeing the imbalance laid out like this can be a huge wake-up call. Being honest with yourself about the flow of energy is the first crucial step.
So, once you've done that audit, you can roll out a three-step defense. First, time boundaries. Decide ahead of time, I'm only talking for 15 minutes. When the time's up, you find a polite way to get off the phone. Second, and this one is massive, topic boundaries. You can simply refuse to be an emotional dumping ground. You can say something like, "That sounds really tough. What are some of the solutions you've been thinking about?" It shifts the focus right back to them. And finally, force reciprocity. Gently but firmly redirect the conversation to their own problem-solving skills. Or, even better, bring up something you need and just see how they react. Trust me, their reaction will tell you everything you need to know.
And all of this leads us to the ultimate goal here, the fundamental shift in your mindset that changes absolutely everything. This right here is the most important takeaway from this whole explainer. I really want you to let this sink in for a moment. Your empathy, your deep desire to help, that feeling of being needed. In this dynamic, those aren't just positive traits, they are the target. That intense pull you feel to step in and fix everything is the very energy the parasite is trying to consume. Your greatest strength is literally being used as the hook. So let's tie this all together. At its core, what we've been calling emotional parasite dynamics is really just the parasite pattern. It's a system where your emotional energy is deliberately stolen, not shared. And the core mechanism? It's brutally simple. Their constant emotional dumping has one single purpose: to cause your resource depletion.
And this whole pattern only works because the host's empathy trap, that deep-seated need to fix things and to heal people, is expertly exploited to provide the parasite with a steady, low-effort source of what they crave the most: narcissistic supply. Your good intentions literally become their fuel.
But here is the good news. Awareness breaks the loop. Once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. By performing that reciprocity audit and seeing the 90-10 split for yourself, and then by consistently enforcing your time and topic boundaries, you stop being a passive source. You start to assert ownership of your own energy.
And that brings us to the final and most empowering question of all. You are not some perpetual public utility of emotional supply. You are the sole and sovereign owner of your energy. The only person who gets to decide how it's spent is you. So I'll leave you with this. Who is the sovereign of your energy?